The lesson outcome for this video is, I can describe data analysis terms and methods. We're going to start with three vocab terms: survey, population, and sample. So a survey, what is a survey when we're talking about data analysis? Well, a survey is a study of one or more characteristics of a group. So you've probably taken surveys before. In my class, I could give you a survey on whether you liked the flipped classroom. So it would be a study of one or more characteristics of a group. So it'd be a study of the characteristic of flipping a classroom with my students. Next, the term population. A population, when it comes to data analysis, is the entire group that you want information about. So if I want information about the entire school at Osseo Senior High, that would be my population. And if I was asking a certain group of people, we're jumping ahead here, that would be a sample of the entire population. So a sample is a part of a population. So we're going to look more closely at these terms in some examples and scenarios on the next page. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of scenarios and just name the population and the sample in each. You don't necessarily need to write these in your notes. Scenario 1, the principal is conducting a survey to see if students like the lunch options at school. He asks 50 students in each lunch whether they like the options or not. So, what is our population in this situation? I'm going to abbreviate that population. Well, the population is the entire school, right? Because he wants to know the feelings of everybody at school. And then what is the sample? Well, the sample is the small group of people that he asks the survey question to. So in this case, it's 50 students in each lunch, 50 per lunch, which for our school, since there's 3 lunches, would be 150 students. So the population versus the sample. In the second example or scenario, owners of a movie theater survey customers to see whether they should add later showtimes. They ask customers going to see an animated family-friendly film. So the population in this situation is all theater customers, right? That would be the population what they're wondering about if they should add later showtimes. The sample they chose is a specific group going to see the animated family-friendly film. Okay, the people that went to that show. I'm not going to write all that right here. Now, what we're going to talk about on the next screen is what happens when a survey is biased. And we'll get those definitions on the next screen. Meaning that it's not really the best way to get good results. In this situation, it's not really the best sample that they could choose. Because I am a person who might go to an animated family-friendly film because I have young children. But then should they be asking me whether there should be later showtimes? Probably not. Since my kids are in bed by 8, this would be not the best group of people to ask that question of. Other people might go to shows at a later time of the day, but probably not people who are going to a family-friendly film. At least not as much. So here's what I mean about bias. All right, we have a biased sample sometimes, and we have a biased question sometimes. So a biased sample is what we just saw. A sample that is not representative of the population. Because people going to see a family-friendly film probably don't want to stay up late because they have young children in many cases. Probably not the best sample to go with when asking that survey. A biased question, on the other hand, is a question that encourages a particular response. All right, we often call those leading questions. They're trying to get a specific answer. Let's take a look at some examples of those. Again, if you choose to only include the vocabulary in your notes, that is fine. If you want to put these scenarios in your notes as well, that's obviously okay too. Scenario 3. In a survey about Americans' interest in soccer, the first 25 people admitted into a high school soccer game were asked, "How interested are you in the world's most popular sport, soccer?" And there should be a comma here, sorry about that. All right, now this is a biased survey, and let's talk about why. First, we have well, we have both things. We have a biased sample and we have a biased question. All right, here's why. It's a biased sample because if we want to know about Americans' interest in soccer, that means anybody in America, asking the question at a high school soccer game, and even more specifically, the first people who arrived, who are probably people who really, really want to sit in the front row, probably not a very unbiased sample that they went with. Probably a very biased one, in fact. So you're not going to get really good results about all of Americans' interest in soccer by asking people at a soccer game who arrived early. The second issue is that this is also a biased question right here. How interested are you in the world's most popular sport, soccer? By adding this most popular sport, the world's most popular sport, you are leading the person taking the survey into saying that it is a great sport, even if that's not your intention, or even if the person might not even like soccer that much. They might be like, oh, it is the world's most popular sport, so I probably like it a little bit. I'm probably somewhat interested. So it's a leading question. So this is a biased sample, and this is a biased question. Scenario 4. A survey conducted on whether or not people like Star Wars. All right, that's what the survey was about. Circle the option that would not produce a biased sample or question. So first of all, about who you should ask, all right, so that's about your biased sample. We're trying not to get a biased sample. So we're wondering if people like Star Wars. Should we ask 30 people at a Star Wars convention or 30 people at the mall? Well, the one that would produce at least a less biased answer would be 30 people at the mall if we want to not to produce a biased sample. All right? If you ask 30 people at a Star Wars convention whether or not they like Star Wars, well, that's pretty silly if you think about it. The second question about the question, to make sure it's not a biased question, it says, what should she ask? And this is just a person asking a question. Are you a fan of the movie franchise Star Wars? Or, do you agree that the best movie in the entire world is Star Wars? Okay, well, obviously, this is our less biased question. Are you a fan of the movie franchise Star Wars? That's not really going to produce a biased sample. You're probably just going to get a yes or a no. I'm a fan or I'm not a fan. Again, the second question is a leading question. It's saying that the movie is the best movie in the entire world, and obviously answers are going to be skewed because of the way the question was phrased. All right, so that was just a little introduction to some data analysis information that we're going to be using in this unit.